I told you he's an amazing guy. I mean, I wish I could have that we could have dove more into the stuff that he's doing for other communities that are underserved. You know, he is his love and his support is vast.
I mean, like everybody has different ways to help out people in whether it's directly or indirect, whatever you're doing. I hope it can end up with helping out people anyways.
Welcome, world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to another podcast show of the Pan Asian Show. I have my wonderful and beautiful co-host, Anisa. And we have a very special guest, a good friend, a dear friend of mine, a mentor, a leader in our community, and a very important person we need to introduce to the world. Well, I'm going to call you Coach because I have a lot of respect for you. Coach Calvin Tom, welcome to the show, Coach.
Hi, thank you for having me, Justin.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. Your story is special because you do a lot of things for the, for the underserved community. And we'll get into that discussion because I want people to know, you know, there are these underserved communities, like just activity. How about just having activity, spending time with them? That's important. And that's going to be a big part of our discussion today. But let's talk about where you grew up and how you grew up, because that's an interesting story. We have a similar story because we grew up in the same area.
Well, born and raised in Oakland, grew up in East Oakland off 73rd Avenue. Not your atypical Asian environment.
Right.
So went to high school in Alameda.
Disclose your ethnic background real quick, Coach.
Well, I'm Chinese.
Okay. First generation, second generation, or you're probably second, right? Third?
First generation. Both parents came straight from China.
Okay. Do you know where?
My mom came from Canton.
Okay.
It's called Guangzhou now, and my dad's from a village outside of Guangzhou.
Oh, okay. All right. So getting back to how you grew up and all that stuff.
Well, definitely older brothers. I had 3 older brothers, older sister, and a younger sister, 6 of us total. They were much into sports, so I got into sports a little bit at an early age. And then growing up in East Oakland, that's what we did. We played sports all day long. And so that was my identity. That was my where my heroes came from, you know, in Black communities.
Right.
There'll be times when you hear the East Oakland twang still come out a little bit.
I mean, yeah, East Oakland has a real country way of putting things together, but that's a lot of the migration that came from the South.
Absolutely. And so, you know, most of my friends were African American. That's who I associated with. That's who I identified with. Unfortunately, I didn't grow up with glasses on and a real bookworm type of stereotypical Asian child, even though that's what my parents wanted. But that wasn't my identity at all.
Yeah, how was the dynamic within your family?
Yeah, family dynamics.
Oh my goodness! Plenty of arguments.
Okay.
Because I was an outspoken American-born child, and my father especially wanted that submissive, respect me first, and be obedient first son, and that definitely wasn't me. The first dynamic that I want to lift up my mom is that in 1958. She divorced her husband and married my father.
Wow.
I mean, that didn't happen in 1958, let alone with an Asian woman.
Wow.
So with my father, I'm actually his firstborn son. So there's a whole lot of
twists and turns.
That right. So,
right. That's life. That's life.
Right. So here, I wanted to go out and play ball all the time, and they wanted me to stay home and study. And that's where a lot of the culture classes came in.
How was Oakland like in the 70s and the 80s?
Wow. Well, you know what? There wasn't as much drug scene at that time as far as
really?
Not like it is now, or even like it was in the 90s. The biggest thing around that time was just a lot of racial tension.
So let's talk about that. Because there was.
There was, because, you had the Black Panther movement, that started in the later 60s and stemmed in, rose
throughout the 70s. Yep.
Yeah. And then you had a lot of Asian gangs between San Francisco and Oakland, or even Filipino and Chinese or whatever, that went on even in the East Bay. And we used to have parties at Pauley Ballroom in Berkeley.
Right. Man, yes. Right? Yeah, and that continued all the way up to through the 90s as well. But
anyways. And there's really the Asian gang activity, and even the African American gang activity has changed over the years, where it's now more about money and more about territory than back then. It was more about just your race and who's more prideful and powerful.
So share some personal childhood stories of perseverance, man, because through sports, look at a lot of things can happen. Have Black friends, you can have Mexican friends. So I know sports food brings people together.
Well, the first and foremost is growing up in East Oakland. There were two things you did: you either gang bang,
right,
or you played ball.
right.
And I played ball within my home community.
Yeah.
And so to a certain extent, a lot of my friends, they protected me. They protected me from anybody wanting to recruit me into their gang or anything like that. So I grew up, playing ball from the time I can remember, and not too bad at it.
Right.
The big thing that was a shocker to me was that there were no Asians to look up to playing any sport. And my ultimate dream was always to play professional baseball.
Yeah. You were a baseball guy first.
Baseball first. Love baseball.
And baseball was a really big thing because Anisa, the Oakland A's at that time, the Oakland Athletics, I mean, they were a great team. Oh my gosh, those were the teams of the 70s, the teams of the 80s, and obviously the teams of 2000. But the early teams were much more fun. Like, we knew every single player, like they were like our neighbors, man. Literally.
Those were the days then.
Yeah,
and a lot of them, back then there wasn't all these gated communities, so they had to live within our communities.
Yeah, they were living in our community, including the Oakland Raiders.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So I remember being in the 6th grade at baseball practice in North Oakland, and Reggie Jackson would drive by in his court to honk his horn and wave out his pen at us, practicing baseball.
Right.
So there was that, and it really did bring a lot of people in together for me. As far as, like you said, as far as color, I have my white friends and my African American friends,
Mexican friends,
absolutely,
because they love baseball too, man.
Yeah, they love baseball, and I just developed an athleticism towards baseball, a love of it. The only Asian that I remember growing up that was playing professional baseball at that time was Len Cicada, and he played for the Baltimore Orioles.
I gotta look him up. I don't remember him.
Yeah, Sakata, Len Cicada.
Was he one of the players that came from Japan?
That I don't remember the history on him. I remember, Sadahara O, that was from Japan, who was a home run king over there.
Right.
And actually hit more home runs than Babe Ruth.
Yeah. See, but of course they're not going to talk about that. An Asian guy having more home runs than the home run king Babe Ruth. Come on. Right. So let's transition a bit into education and athletics, because they go hand in hand when you're a student athlete. You talked a little bit about you're more of a sports guy and your dad wanted you to be more scholastic.
Well, I went to high school at St. Joe's in Alameda. And my whole elementary, middle school, and high school was through Catholic school, 12 years of Catholic school. My parents wanted us to have a little bit better education, so they thought paying for it would be the way. It wasn't until later when I found out, you really get out of it what you put into it, no matter where you go to school.
Right.
However, school required us to have that, I think, 2.0 or a little bit higher GPA.
A lot lower back then. Expectations were a lot lower. Holy cow.
Well, it's even worse now.
Oh, really? Okay.
1.7 now or something like that.
Yeah. Wow.
Which doesn't help the kids.
Wow.
Really.
Anisa, you never got a 1.7. You never got anything lower than a 3.8 or something.
I don't even know what those numbers mean.
How did they grade you? How did they grade? Those are grade averages. Grade point average.
We barely use GPA. I think I would have like 3 or something. I don't know.
Oh,
we don't do that.
Wow. Well, Coach C, Anisa, I forgot to tell you, Anisa is an Indonesian woman that was transplanted into the Netherlands.
Oh.
Yeah. So, so this is our international podcast, by the way. So how did they grade you?
Well, we have grades that go from 1 to 10, with 1 being very bad to 10 being perfect.
Okay.
So I would usually get around 6 and 7, which would be a C in America.
Oh, what? I can't imagine that, Anisa.
Wow.
Are we talking about in high school, like that high school level? What are we talking about?
No, I'm actually talking about college.
No, I can't believe that.
Dutch universities, they rarely give higher than a B. If you get a B, that's basically A++. They never do that. So we always try for a C.
Wow. So if you get an A, they might as well give you the Nobel Peace Prize, right?
Yeah, they might as well just let you graduate immediately.
They might let you. Wow. Okay.
Growing up and playing ball at St. Joe's, again, no Asians really playing. A lot of my Filipino American friends, they went off and played
basketball.
Went to school at St. Mary's in Berkeley. Right. And I had one Filipino American friend who played sports at St. Joe's. And he went on to play basketball at USF. And
what's his name? What's his name so we can look him up and find him? Robert
Duran Jr.
Wow. Shout out to Robert Duran Jr. Okay.
Yeah, Giron.
Okay.
So, and Bobby, we've known each other since 1974.
Wow.
And we're still good friends to this day. And so, I had to keep my grades up. I knew I had to keep my grades up if I wanted to continue playing high school sports that would lead me to the professional ranks. And, so I did what I had to do. I got my grades to pass, and so I could play.
Right. And so did your other siblings, did they also participate in sports? Were they also student athletes, or were they more scholastic in academics?
No, they were all student athletes.
Okay.
My oldest brother played football with O.J. Simpson at Galileo High School in San Francisco.
O.J. Simpson is the one. Anisa is the one that killed his wife. That big.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, that big like murder scandal in the U.S. O.J. Simpson. You gotta look him up. You gotta look him up. Oh, just type in O.J. Well, not now, not but,
okay.
Yeah, but look him up. Yeah, so that's crazy, Coach.
Yeah. And then my second oldest brother played basketball and baseball at Berkeley High. Third oldest ran track at Berkeley High. My sister even played some sports in middle school. And then my younger sister played sports in high school growing up with brothers. And then she went on to play softball at USC. So,
let's jump into a different topic. You've been giving back to community, and so you help out serving underserved communities. Can you tell us a bit more about your experiences with helping out the blind and disabled people?
Like disabled and the foster care.
Yeah, well, currently we took in a young man. His name is Taiwan. He's 16 years old, and he was on my freshman basketball team and 2 years ago. And his story was that he was going to have to move because there was some reports of abuse in his home. And he let me know that he was in the foster care system. And my wife and I, after she met him, we decided to do what we could to help him because he wanted to be a trauma surgeon. And, a kid, whether they're in foster care or in a typical home, when they have goals like that, you want to help that kid out any way you can.
Right.
So he lives with us now for almost a year now.
Wow.
End of August will be a year.
Yeah. And can I attest that Anisa, Taiwan is an amazing kid. He's like, is he what, 6'6" now, 6'7"? Is he taller than that now?
Yeah, he grew. He's 6'7.5".
So he's 6'7". Yeah, and he's a basketball player. And can I say this? I was interviewing him for the magazine for our showcase. This kid, he took public transportation, Anisa, from a different city that was approximately, driving is probably like 40, 45 minutes, maybe an hour, depending on traffic, but he took public transportation. So that took like an hour and a half or something like that. He showed up on time. We did the photo shoot. We did the interview. Such a humble kid. Like this kid is just wholeheartedly a good person, man. And that's what, and that's what warms my heart with what you're, helping him with. But also, obviously, he's providing an experience for you and your family as well. Yeah. So it's a mutual thing. In life, everything is mutual, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we are also involved in a program called eHoops, which takes kids with special needs who would normally not be able to play in typical basketball leagues. And we bring them all together, and we have other coaches, whether they're high school or adult coaches, that help each kid to learn the game of basketball, whether it's learning a dribble, pass. And a lot of these kids, they're physically, they don't have the mechanics to do a lot of things.
Right.
So there's a lot of one-on-one. We try to have one coach for every two kids. And they just get a chance to learn the game of basketball, shoot and play and run around and just have fun without worrying about, are they good enough to get into the game or anything like that.
Right, right.
We have been featured at Warrior games.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
So the kids got to play on the Warriors court during halftime. but this is all part of our esports program, which started with soccer. And even the Earthquakes now are helping to sponsor us down at Avaya Stadium. These kids even get to go to Avaya Stadium to play soccer.
Right.
And, a lot of times we have one child, his name is Richie. He's blind.
Wow,
but he's
incredible.
running up and down the court faster than I could. I'm like trying to keep up. Richie, slow down. I'm not keeping up with you. And, I would stand under the basket and clap my hands, and he would shoot, and he made like 5 in a row, 6 in a row.
Wow. Wow.
So, yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Bobby actually will have those stories because he was able to mentor Richie on the basketball court at the Warriors and got pictures with Stefan and Kevon Looney and things like that. And,
wow. And I think as we grow older, we are trying to be more and to do more. And if you're young like Anisa, and even younger, if you're in high school, I think when you develop a passion to serve others, to serve different kinds of communities, that is a great career to go into. And if you want to be entrepreneurial about it, you can do it. And there's different career paths to be economically, fulfilling and really be in a position to do meaningful work every day. That's why teachers, we have all the medical, the doctors and the nurses, those are all fulfilling work. Yeah, those are all fulfilling work, and it's okay to be that. It's okay to do that. You don't, there's other options than being a professional sports athlete, working for a tech company. But if that's your passion, that's your passion. But, just be aware, world, that there are other things that you can do that are a little bit more different and that can have a bigger and more meaningful impact in the world.
Well, I think,
go ahead.
To piggyback on that, I think that this whole thing with the COVID is really showing that. You see a lot more celebrities, you see a lot more professional athletes and professional first responders or whatever coming out to help others, not just with the money, but physically out there.
Time,
handing out food, doing whatever they can help fundraise and everything else. So, the advent of the smartphone technology and everything started with the selfies, right? And so pretty soon the selfies turned into self-centered. And I mean, how many people post their worst times on Instagram, like you're saying? Everything's all beautiful and
because that's not real life, man.
That's not real life. Well, at least not for us.
Yeah, not for us, right? Not for many. Not for many.
9%.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a bit more about helping out with foster care?
Well, we had to go through classes. We had to go through 2 8-hour classes on Saturday mornings, and there's other orientation classes we have to go through, background checks, fingerprinting, our history, and finances, and the condition of our home, if it was up to certain standards. So it is a big undertaking. It's not just bringing a kid in and that's it. That's the Cliff Note version. However, there is a lot to it, but for us, it was definitely worth it to go through everything that we went through, because Taiwan's an asset to our home and our family,
and the community, and the community, because his whole idea is he wants to give back also, and that's why he wanted to be a surgeon, a trauma surgeon, so he can help others. Right.
And that's what attracted me to him and his story right away. As a coach, I'm not, especially as a freshman basketball coach, if you're on my freshman team, the likelihood of you making a living playing basketball is not likely.
Right.
So I try to get to know my players on a personal level more than the basketball level, and to know them as humans, and to let them know that they have choices in life, and that people will look at them differently depending on who they are. You know, I want to know them as people, as persons, as young men, and help guide and mentor them in that way more than the basketball sense.
I would like to know about what is Coach Kelvin's perspective on how Asian athletes have evolved over time. Please share us a bit.
What is your point?
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's a lot of it. We're not tall enough. We're not strong enough. We're not athletic enough. We're deemed the support players and never the starters. Even as a coach, you know.
How about that?
You know, how many Asian American coaches do you see even in college, where we still have that stigma of not being looked at seriously,
right?
Like we were ending with Jeremy Lin. You know, he couldn't get another job in the NBA, so he's playing in China now.
After winning the NBA title. After winning the NBA title. That's crazy to me. We're talking about the Asian athlete. You know, there are other sports other than basketball that a lot of Asians participate in and excel in. You know, and I think a lot of Asian athletes are participating in Asian games, you know, Olympic events. The SEA Games. The SEA Games are Southeast Asian
the SEA Games.
Right?
I was in Indonesia 2 years ago.
Right. So those are the platforms in which you can represent your country. Like there's a lot of Asian Americans representing for their motherland.
From a personal perspective, back in the mid 80s, late 80s, the Olympics were bringing baseball back into play. And I already stopped playing baseball. And I was working at this business. And a friend of mine who played baseball with me, he found me and he said, "Hey, you know, coach has been trying to find you. You know, they're looking for American ball players to go over to Europe to teach them how to play baseball because it's becoming an Olympic sport. They know how to play, but they don't know the technical aspects of the
fundamentals and stuff."
So, So, you know, when he said, they're looking for American ball players to go, this white woman who was walking by said, "Well, why do they want you then?"
Wow.
To me.
Right.
And my friend who is white looked at her funny, like, you know, lady,
do you know who this guy is? Do you know who this guy is?
And I'm thinking to myself, well, you know, I'm probably more American than you are because I don't go around burning the flag.
Yes.
Like
yes.
I didn't say that.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah. That, you know, that was on a personal, you know, thing. And, you know, it was just, that's what we deal with.
Right. Well, I think it's important that we talk about the successes we have around the world as Asians. Absolutely. You know, and our tremendous influence that we have in a lot of industries. And I think the more we talk about it, the more, you know, we control the narrative of how we look at ourselves, how we look at each other, and how other people outside our box look at us. Because I don't think, especially today with Trump really changing the narrative for a lot of Asians around the world, and because he's an American president, Asian Americans, with and now the increase in violence against Asian Americans with this whole China flu thing. I mean, literally, Kung flu. You know, literally over 150 cases have been filed. Now, you know, a lot of Asian Americans, Asian Americans don't file, you know. Right. I think we have a long way to go because there are a lot of Asians that are on the whole anti-blackness thing. That's only because, you know, I think if you're in a country that has multitude of ethnic of diversity. The thing that it's your job to extend an olive branch and to do your due diligence to learn about your community that you and your family are living in.
Right.
Right.
That's part of being where you are. You can't. It's difficult now to put yourself in a bubble. Go to work, go to a grocery store, and be in a bubble. Come on, man. And that will alleviate a lot of the misunderstanding, misinformation between everybody.
That's interesting because when my cousins and, they first came over from China, Hong Kong, back in the mid 80s, late, early 80s, their perception of blacks were fear.
Yeah.
Because, they're bigger, they're stronger, they're more aggressive.
The media, the movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything. Yeah, I mean, their first reaction is, I'm fearful of them. However, as far as living in a bubble, my mom lives in a bubble. She's living with us now for the past few months, during this whole thing. But being in Chinatown, living in Oakland, Chinatown, she never has to venture out anywhere.
Right, because everything is there. Everything you need is there, right?
Right. She doesn't care about the fashion, so she buys clothes from the store that's in Chinatown. She gets her medication there. She gets her groceries there.
She banks there.
So it is it's a bubble just like Fruitvale Avenue is.
Yes, that is a bubble.
Mexican American community.
Yeah.
Right. They don't have to really learn how to speak English. The Asian American community like that doesn't have to really learn how to speak or read English, so those bubbles exist. For the immigrants.
Right. How about for you, Anisa?
My mom and I are both first generation. So it was already hard for me to get to know this country and fit in, but for her especially because I was 5 when I studied Dutch, so it was very easy for me. But my mom was already 30, and learning a language is really hard in that age. And then she went to she went to take this course how to learn Dutch and learn Dutch culture because you have to. If you don't do that, you will get kicked off the country. So everybody goes there,
right?
And that's where she met a lot more Asian friends. Like a lot of people came from Thailand, Cambodia, and
right.
Maybe also the Philippines, and also Arabic countries. So she had a lot of foreign friends for a long time. Actually, it was hard for her to make friends with Dutch people.
Right.
Because the language, the culture is all so different, and if you're still having a lot of daily contact with family and friends over there in Indonesia, you don't really want to fit in here. Especially now with technology, you just open up Indonesian Facebook, whatever.
Right.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
with other countries. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I mean, you experience racism because you didn't fit into the culture, or because of the color of your skin, or because there's different aspects of racism.
Oh yeah.
Or was it everything?
We were targeted on all areas. My skin color, my name, my culture, everything was bad in the eyes of my classmates.
Yeah. I think if you're coming in as an immigrant, you're already starting at the bottom socially.
Yeah, you're already
economically, educational, right? So there's, I think, especially in America right now, because when I grew up, my father was a lawyer and he worked for the Oakland School District, and he helped a lot of the second wave or the first wave of Cambodians and third or fourth wave of Chinese, whatever wave of Asian immigration that way came through Oakland in the Bay Area. He helped them. The parents get jobs. He helped place a lot of the kids in the good schools, and sometimes out of their district if he can, so they can receive better education. We need more people like that, because that helps. I mean, there might be some, I don't know what the federal or state programs are to help support that transition, but that's a big part of it. That's a big part of learning how to live in this strange land that you heard about, that you saw on the news, So we need more of that.
Really helped. Yeah, people here are really helped out by the government by how to transition, because it's really important for the government that we assimilate. So we get a lot of help with that. Yeah, it's just outside of school. How do you it's just when you step out of school, then that's when life happens, and then you're basically all alone.
Yes, and that's why I'm saying is we need more of us, people that look like us, that understand the transition. Right? It's just like having a big brother, a big sister, an auntie, uncle help you through life. That's what we need. Maybe there are programs like that and we're uneducated about that, and maybe we need to bring light to their services, because a lot of like the recent immigration of Asians, like the Cambodians, the Miens, the Laos, they're struggling to get through high school. You know what I'm saying? And that is lack of support, because look at their parents. Think of immigrating now. I mean, the cost of living. Yeah, I mean, right. But just think about immigrating now in these times. The cost of living is so fast. You're coming from a more maybe quiet, simpler life, and coming all of a sudden, depending on the city, the place that you live in, it could be mind-blowing. Like, what? I have to work.
Just the speed of life here.
Yes. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't really prepare a person for that. You can't, because now all of a sudden, you might have to work 2, maybe 3 jobs.
Right.
So that's less time with the family, less time with the kids. That's less parenting. And if you're not fortunate to have your grandma living with you, your grandparents living with you, right? Or a multitude of families living in a house so everyone can help each other, which that is the immigrant experience as well. Multiple families living in a 2 or 3 bedroom house, sharing the cost of living. Those are the best days of my life. I remember those days, right? But without that help, man, that's tough. And that's why it's important that we have more of us helping, the current immigrants coming into whatever country. We just did a recent episode, Coach, about music and the influence of, I know you and I, we have a specific kind of music that we particularly like, the old school music, but the new music, with the K-pop, that's the Korean pop stuff, right? And other types of music that are created by Asians around the world has been prominent, and obviously we have other influences around the world in different types of industries, and I think it's important to bring those up. As I stated before, it's our job to control the narrative in our own media, because then that will lend some empowerment, maybe and encourage you to pursue what you want to pursue. So you feel a little bit, you feel supported in that way when you see someone like, for us, like when we see Bruno Mars doing his thing and everyone's going crazy for him, and but let's close out what you want to see and where you want to see the Asian American student athlete in the near future. Is it that vital that we have a few of them make it to the professional level, whether it's coaching and them actually being players? Maybe how about a few of them as in the executive position? Because we're good behind the desk as well. You know what I mean? So let's talk about all those aspects of sports and need more representation.
Well, yeah, I mean, it would definitely help to have some of the Asian Americans represented as athletes in a professional sport, besides baseball. And unfortunately, a lot of those Asians that play baseball are not from America. Yeah. They're from other countries.
Yeah, and they're good too. And they're good.
And they're good. But to have an Asian American grow up that was, grew up playing ball in your backyard, and you can identify with him as a white or black person, or relate to him, you have a little bit more respect for that person.
Yes.
Even though the Asians that are playing baseball now are very good, sometimes there's still that lack of respect. Did you really come up through the minor leagues? Maybe not. Maybe you were just good over there and they brought you over here, and you didn't have to pay your dues. There's a lot of times that happens from the athlete's mindset, as far as paying your dues. Football, I remember that there were a couple of Asians that were playing football, professional football, but one was a lineman, so they don't get a whole lot of publicity. Another one was a kicker, I think, that came out of UCLA, and he didn't make it for too long. So that doesn't help with the stereotype.
Right.
But for basketball, that, we had our Yao Ming, we had our Jeremy Lin.
We had various other players from China as well that didn't, and one from the Philippines that didn't really last that long.
Right. So, I think, in that respect, the level of competition overseas, it will never, I shouldn't say never. It will be very hard to duplicate with NBA players here.
Right.
You have a lot of NBA players that go and play in China and everything, but that's after their careers here are done.
Yeah. Well, for example, I'd like to jump in a little bit. That's one very famous American basketball player is Stefan Marbury. Right. He had a resurgence, and what's so great, Anisa, Stefan Marbury is this is African American player that had a really good professional career in the United States, but then he was a little, towards the end of his career, he had some media publicity kind of problem, right, with his image, right? Yeah. So he went to China, right, as, I guess, a way to get away from the American media, and he needed a change. And you know what, Anisa, not only did China embrace him, he is nearly a rock star. A rock star. Like he can do no wrong. He does movies. They made a museum about him. He actually has a documentary on Netflix about his life, his basketball career in the US and the transition to China. He speaks the language, maybe not as fluent, but he speaks the language. He is cultured in the Chinese culture. And, there's various cultures that they love him. So I love his story. I'm going to post a link on information on, his documentary, but that's a great American Chinese story. Mm-hmm. And you say that, yes, basketball outside of the United States may not be as good, but I tell you what, they're catching up in the Olympics. A lot of countries are kicking butt, man. Yeah, right. They're really good, and look at everything's in stages as training and genetics evolve. Right? Once there's a lot more mixing, you know what I'm saying? There's gonna be, one of these days, and I think we have to redefine what success is. We have to redefine what success is for every individual person, every country, every community, because we can't say, I'll never be like LeBron James. Be you, maximize your potential. It's not about being good looking like Brad Pitt. Be good looking and attractive and amazing in your own way. You know what I'm saying? And own who you are. So with that said, I hope the world can have a more broader definition of what giving back is and what success is, because with your life, Coach, it's about making other people better.
Yes.
You know, and that's what you've been able to do with your life. I mean, look at, you're a coach. What does that say? You're mentoring, you're helping, you're bringing out the best in people. And you have to find joy in what you do. Find joy in how you do it. You know what I mean? And you will be able to earn an honest living. You know what I mean? And you have to change, again, your definition of success. Anisa, how do you feel about that? Close out on that point.
I feel that it's really important to do work that you think is meaningful, because that's what brings you happiness. Like, if your happiness is to sit on a desk and make money, then that's your job. Go ahead. Like,
yes.
But if you want to help out people, and maybe you will not get as rich, but that's okay, as long as you are happy helping people out in your way, and think that you can make the world a better place in that way. So
Right.
it doesn't really define how. Let me say this this way: like, don't let other people define what success is for you. The only person who can do that is yourself, in your own way, whether it be a desk job or being a rock star or helping people out. Not everybody is good at helping people out.
Right, but everyone can have a place in the process. Coach,
definitely.
leave us with some hope and encouragement to go into maybe some of the services that, or organizations that you've been able to help, like esports, and finding creative ways to build businesses to provide services for underserved and underprivileged communities.
Well, there, to quote the Bible,
yes.
There's a verse that says, "Those who refresh others, they themselves get refreshed." And that's so true, because, when I'm doing something for myself, I don't feel nearly as good as when I'm doing something to help someone else.
Right.
You get that feeling of purpose. You get that feeling of building something versus just holding on to something.
Right.
And, they're just in this country, so many people want to rely on the government. And the government helps out in so many different ways, and it's good.
Right.
However, there's a lot of businesses, mega billion-dollar businesses, that should be putting money back into their communities also.
Right.
Number one, it's good for their PR. Number two, it helps build for their future, because those kids that you're going to help out now, maybe your CEO in the future, or maybe just even your shipping and receiving clerk. But, if you're not helping out within your community, you're not building your brand. You're not going to build for sustainability.